One more piece could give Kansas State the best wide receiver room in the Big 12 Conference heading into 2025.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Kansas State, your Locked On Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh. You can find me on Twitter at Christian S. Rauh. And thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your daily podcast, your first listen every single day. We're going to dig into some really fun topics today because with National Signing Day behind us, all focus is now on the Kansas State Wildcats and the transfer portal. Before we start that, you can start off your season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win on your first $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Everydayers may have heard me already speak about this, but after having one of the best recruiting classes in recent memory on Wednesday, all of the momentum is with K-State heading into this offseason. I mean, let's think about it. Despite the rough finish to the season after starting the year 7-1, it didn't phase that new freshman class. And with the same can be true for the transfer portal that officially opens up on Monday. Although we are still a weekend away from it officially opening, December 9th is that official day for the transfer portal. There's been plenty of transfer portal chatter across the nation, and Kansas State is no different. They're right in the thick of it with some of the exciting players looking for a new home in 2025. So today, we're going to focus on the wide receiver room. That's where we're really going to dig into today because, as you already know, there seems to be some questions heading into a new year and who will still be Wildcats moving forward. So that's what we need to start with, and we're going to start right there. Who will still be here moving forward? And the two names, Jayce Brown, Spivey, those are the two names that are really coming up on really the focus on will they stay Wildcats in 2025. Now, there was some rumors coming out before the game against Iowa State, before Farmageddon, that Jayce Brown will enter the transfer portal. That has not happened yet. He came out before the game as well, saying that is not true, at least for the time being. All his focus was on the game against Iowa State. Now, that's for sure. His focus was on Iowa State. He was fantastic in that game. And if those portal rumors are true, Kansas State's going to be hurting without Jayce Brown. Hopefully he stays. We definitely want to see him stick around. Spivey is coming out. He's looking really good. What he has done over the second half of the season has been super exciting, and you want to keep both of those two. If you can get both of those two guys to stay, then you are looking at a really great wide receiver room to start it off. And we haven't even talked about some of the portal additions going in. Now, you just added 3 wide receivers from that recruiting class, and that's great as well. Plenty to be excited about from that recruiting class. If you want to dig into that recruiting class and what we talked about in that last episode, be sure to check that out. But K-State's got some work to do, and they know well that if they know they have to if they want to ensure to keep these two staying in the program and not put their name into the transfer portal. And when I mean work to do, that means money in this day and age. They're going to have to spend out a little bit, make sure those guys don't go anywhere else. Because if Kansas State wants them, you know dang well that every other Power 4 team in the nation wants these guys. Jayce Brown isn't an outside threat. We saw it in the Iowa State game. We didn't see enough over the season, but he is great, and he's good friends with Avery Johnson. He's mentioned it. Both of those players have mentioned it multiple times that they have a great relationship with each other. So hopefully that means that he sticks around. He did put out a little bit of a cryptic tweet just the other day with 2 bones emojis. Not really sure what that means. So if you know what that means or you have an idea, let me know in the comment description below. I don't really speak emoji. I probably should get good at it though, because we're going to start seeing a lot of these cryptic tweets coming out during the transfer portal and things like that. I think having Jayce Brown and Spivey as your number 1 and number 2 receiver, regardless of what happens in this transfer portal, will be huge for the future of the Kansas State Wildcats in 2025. And if these two stay and lead the way for Kansas State for this offense in 2025, this team has one of the best wide receiver rooms in the Big 12. Just from these two alone, if that happens. If you look at what they've just added, if you look at the other players involved, this is one of the best wide receiver rooms in the Big 12 if those two stay. That's it. Now, if that happens and Coach Kleiman and the rest of the Kansas State coaching staff and that recruiting team brings in at least one of the top receivers in the portal, they have the chance to be the best wide receiver room in the conference. And dare I even say, one of the top in the country for next season. I really feel strongly about that. I do think that there's a huge chance for this team to take that next step forward. And what's crazy to sound is the next step forward is what, 9-10 wins, getting back into the Big 12 championship. That's great. Remember, this is only 8 programs in the nation that have won at least 8 games a year over the last 4-year span. This is a down year, but it's not like it's down and out or they're missing bowl games or, falling out of contention completely. Right up to the last week of the season, Kansas State was in Big 12 contention. Now, it was a long shot, but there was still a chance. So getting back that next step and getting into the Big 12 contention even more and getting into the college football playoff contention even more, that's that next step. And adding an extra piece of receiver on the offense, having weapons just all around every single play, every eligible weapon is going to be something to look forward to and something to keep in mind when we're talking about the portal over and over again these next couple of weeks, because it's going to be loaded. The transfer portal is going to be loaded. There's going to be lots to talk about. And even though they just picked up 26 in the recruiting class, even though the roster size is going down to 105 here this season, there's still room for plenty of people in the transfer portal. And I'm going to say it one more time because I do think that it's huge. And I started off the show with this. There is a huge chance that Kansas State could have the best wide receiver group in the Big 12 conference if they do the right things in the portal. And I will say it again, one of the best in the country as well. There are already a few top players who've had some offers come in to Manhattan, and we're going to talk about that in here next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. I love a great deal as much as the next guy, but I'm not going to crawl through hoops or hot coals just to get there. So with Mint Mobile, said it was easy when getting wireless for only $15 a month with a purchase of a 3-month plan. I called them onto it. And it turns out it really was easy to get $15 a month. The longest part of the process was the time I spent on hold waiting to break up with my other old provider. So check it out because Mint Mobile has been great. And it's not just one of those funny commercials you see on TV. Now, they are pretty good commercials, I will say. But to get started, go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. And there you'll see right there and right now, all 3-month plans are only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. Yeah, $15 a month for an unlimited plan. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered right on the nation's largest 5G network. You can also use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all the existing contacts. How annoying is that, having to switch your contacts on a new phone? Yeah, I'm not about that. So Mint Mobile makes it easy. So find out how easy it is to switch Mint Mobile and get 3 months of premium wireless service for only $15 a month. To get this new customer offer, you must your new 3-month wireless plan for just $15. Go to mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege. That's mintmobile.com/lockedoncollege and cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/college. $45 upfront payment is required, which is equivalent to that $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions do apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast for the Kansas State Wildcats, your team every day. Portal chatter is in full swing. That's what we're talking about today. And we dug into why some of these players should stick around to Kansas State. Hopefully they stay around. Jayce Brown, Trey Spivey being the big ones as we talk about the wide receiver group today. And what we're going to dig into now is now we already see some offers on the table. Now, the transfer portal opens up Monday. Some names have already put in. Some of them are grad transfers. Some are not the case. The ones we're talking to are not the case. So officially they enter the portal on Monday. Now, some offers have came in. They have talked about that on social media, and Kansas State's right in that. So as the portal starts to heat up, some offers have already been placed on the table for some of these top players in the country. Kansas State has been busy this past week. Now, the fact that they don't play football this week, maybe that comes into play. Maybe that helps. I know the recruiting team has been fantastic. They've really stepped up their game this past season. You saw it with the National Signing Day. Coach Kleiman said it in his press conference on National Signing Day, how just how much more organized they feel this year. And hopefully that comes into fruition with the portal this season as well. And K-State's been busy this past week, as I mentioned, and a few wide receivers that can make an immediate impact have already received offers from this program. So let's dive into them. I see 4 already that are receiving some potential offers for Kansas State. First, we're going to start off with a transfer from North Carolina State, and that's wide receiver Kevin Concepcion. He entered the portal and immediately has a strong tie with potentially joining the Wildcats. And the reason behind that is his brother Nunu just signed a national signing day, with Kansas State. He flipped from North Carolina State to Kansas State to sign in the freshman class. Could his brother do the same exact thing moving into 2025? Now, he had a great season, and he finished the year 53 receptions, 460 yards, 6 touchdowns. He averaged just over 8 yards per catch when he was playing. A lot of that stuff came early in the season. Now, North Carolina State did lose their quarterback, Grayson McCall, who before the injury and before really this year, when he was with Coastal Carolina, had a lot of discussions about being a potential NFL quarterback. He did get injured. He did decide to medically retire. It was a pretty bad injury. I'm sure if you saw that, you would agree as well. But while he was with NC State starting off the year, Concepcion had a great year. He started off the season 9 receptions, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns in the opening game. He played great against Tennessee. He played great against Clemson, both ranked teams at the time, and he had a lot of good games on the schedule. They didn't play any Big 12 teams, so I can't really put that out like how he would fare against other Big 12 squads. North Carolina State didn't have any Big 12 teams on the schedule, but you're looking at just how he performed. 6 touchdowns, that's pretty good. And it did not seem like it worked out quite well once McCall left the squad. He didn't get as many receptions. He only had 6 receptions over his last 3 games with the team, and that's probably a reason why he entered the portal. Maybe he didn't see a future there. The fact that his brother moved to Kansas State, that's a good sign as well for Kansas State. We'll see what happens. Now, if you're talking about he performs great with a good quarterback, well, sir, I have news for you. We have a guy named Avery Johnson who can do just that, and I think that he'd be a perfect fit for Kansas State. And as I mentioned, he's already got a good tie. So would not be surprised to see if Kevin Concepcion finds himself in Manhattan once this is all said and done. There's already talks that he's going to make some visits. Now, there is some other teams on the table as well, including Colorado is one of them, another one in the Big 12. So there will be some competition for him. But this guy can immediately make an impact for sure. There's no doubt about that. Second on the list, I saw another offer come out from Purdue wide receiver Jared Tibbs. Now, this is going to be probably one of the lowest ones when you're looking at how his stats performed in 2024. But if you look at the schedule and the standings in the Big Ten, Purdue didn't have a very good year. They were terrible. So much that they did fire their coach. Jared Tibbs had 25 receptions for only 305 yards, 2 touchdowns. But out of 25 receptions, he was averaging over 12 yards per catch when he was doing that. So just not enough, really just not enough time, not enough snaps, if you will, out there. And it seemed to really be the case. There's some multiple times where he had 4 or 5 receptions in a game. And one of those biggest ones, one of his biggest games was against 23rd ranked Illinois at the time, where he had 4 receptions for 51 yards and a touchdown. And you got to love that. You got to love when going up against good teams, you still put up good numbers, even though you had a dreadful year on the season. I'm pretty sure their only win of the year was against Indiana State at the beginning of the year. They were a pretty dreadful squad. I think one of the worst programs in all of Power 4 college football. It couldn't even been the worst program in all of college football, Group 5 included. It was just a really bad squad. But that doesn't take away for how Jared Tibbs was. Jared Tibbs, sophomore, 6'3", 214 out of Indianapolis, Indiana. He could be a big-time threat. And the fact that he was already picking up some really good catches, even though they weren't a lot, for 12 yards or more, I think that's something that can really be big for Kansas State if he decides to come over and be offered. He didn't have the best season. Neither did Purdue. They fired their coach, and Tibbs definitely has the potential to be explosive if you give him more of an opportunity. More than 25 receptions per season, I think you can see a lot of good things. Even if he does stick with 25 receptions around that time, even if you only get that many snaps, if you're getting that type of production, that type of efficiency off of that, maybe if it's a little lower on your squad, assuming like Jayce Brown and Spivey return, and he's your 3 or 4, or maybe even 5, knowing you have that type of power that low, that's pretty impressive. Now, I'm not saying that's how it's going to be, or how that's going to happen, because if you're marketing to Tibbs that, hey, you're going to be our 4 or 5 guy, and we're going to keep your traffic the same, you're only going to get 25 receptions the same time as you were at Purdue, I don't think he's going to head this way. But just in a long sense form, looking forward to Kansas State, if that was the low for the floor for Tibbs heading into 2025, and he winds up being with the Wildcats, then you're in a pretty good spot. So pretty cool there. Jalen Moss, another one that was offered by Kansas State already, another sophomore, 6'1", 175 out of Fresno State. And he had a great year last year. He's had a great 2 years. He was 55 receptions for 706 yards in 2023 with 6 touchdowns. Took a little bit of step back in 2024, but not by much. 48 receptions, 563 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Each year, both averaging around 12 yards per reception. Gotta love that. You gotta love every catch is more than a first down. When I see that, that's exactly what goes to my mind there. Every catch this guy makes, on average, is more than an average first down, meaning this guy moves the sticks. You gotta love that. You gotta love what you're seeing from a guy from Jalen Moss. Now, he will probably have a lot of offers on the table. This guy is fast. This guy's got speed, and seeing what he did in Fresno State over the last 2 seasons is something that is going to be, really impactful for a lot of other Power 4 schools. But I do think that he would fit well with Kansas State. The last one I want to talk about, and I want to dig into this one a little bit, because I think this one is a true X factor. And if you saw that this guy being offered on social media, if you saw his post, you're already going to tell where I'm going at. And I'm going to JoJo Williams out of Tulsa. Now, he won the American Athletic Conference Freshman of the Year this past season for wide receiver before he entered the portal. So it's not like he entered on, not getting enough traffic, not getting enough playing time. He entered because he wants to take that next step forward. He wants to move on from Tulsa. So there's no doubt that he's going to be highly offered everywhere that you look. There's probably going to be a new offer on the table for JoJo. So if Kansas State can bring him in, he is going to be an immediate X factor for the Wildcats in 2025. I'm picturing a world right now, and see if you can picture with me, because I'm picturing it where you have JoJo, Jayce, and Trey Spivey together alongside Avery Williams as your top 3 wide receiver group. I mean, how does that feel right now? And if you haven't seen JoJo Williams yet, I just Google or YouTube his highlights. Go check out one of his top games. He was fantastic this season. He had 30 receptions for 588 yards, 5 touchdowns. If you put that math together, I won't make you do it because I have it right in front of me. That's almost an average of 20 yards per catch this season. He was a freshman, 6'2", 195, Arlington, Texas this last year. Tulsa didn't have a great year. And that's probably one of the reasons why he's trying to step up. They're only 3-9 on the season. And you want to make a new step forward if you're trying to, make it to the league. If you're the American Athletic Conference Freshman of the Year, American Athletic Conference is probably going to be one of the best G5 conferences. They're probably the best G5 conference out there right now. Now, I know the Mountain West is probably going to get Boise State in the college football playoffs, but you have Tulane, you have Army, you have Navy. There's plenty of good teams in that conference. So trying to make that next step up, it would not be surprising to see him get some offers from some of the SEC teams, some Big Ten teams. So if Kansas State, a Big 12 team, who in the eyes of many, I'm looking at you, College Football Committee, is a low conference, which is not the case. They're getting screwed again, as we've mentioned on this show. But if the Big 12 and Kansas State especially can make a statement in this transfer portal, maybe the eyes will shift a little bit. I doubt it, though. I doubt they'll find a way to be upset about the Big 12, which way or the other. But just imagine this. JoJo Williams, Jayce Brown, Trey Spivey. To me, that 8-4 record that we are sitting on right now will seem like a long-distance memory. It'll feel like it's years behind if you're moving into the offseason with that type of power and potential. I mean, the confidence has to be through the roof right now in Manhattan, if that's the case. So let's see this staff cook. Really, let's see what they can do there in this portal window. And let's hope that we don't see any big names of our own leave. And that's still a potential. We're seeing it happen with KU right now. Kansas, they're losing a lot of players. One of the top freshmen from last year's class just entered the portal. So there's a chance that we can still see that too. The portal's opening on Monday. We haven't heard too many names. We still don't know what's happened with Jayce Brown, as we mentioned. So hopefully that's not the case. I do have faith in this program, especially after how they crushed it this past week on National Signing Day. As I mentioned at the beginning of this show, all the momentum is sitting with Kansas State. Hopefully they can continue it on with the transfer portal moving forward, because they're cooking with gas. They really are, regardless of missing out on this Big 12 championship game or not. There are plenty of reasons why these wide receivers should choose Kansas State as their next home. There's 4 of them right here. At least one of them should be choosing Kansas State as their next home. Plenty of reasons why. And we're going to discuss that next, right here, Locked On Kansas State. All right, well, first, I want to talk to you about FanDuel and get ready to tackle all the action with FanDuel's America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, and NFL, college football, college basketball, you name it. They can do it all there, right there in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can talk about live play-by-play and so much more on the same page that you place the same bet. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. We were talking about a huge Big East, Big 12 matchup between St. John's and Kansas State here on Saturday. So if you want to get in a bet there, if you think that Kansas State can take them, I'm pretty sure they're going to be an underdog in that one because of how they've performed so far against big teams. If you think that they can turn their season around, what's a better time to check out FanDuel and get their odds in there? So visit FanDuel today. You'll get started with $150, folks, on bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So if you think Kansas State's going to win that game, a perfect $5 bet on the money line would do just good for you. And that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment count with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NFL. And welcome on back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. We're talking about the transfer portal chatter. It's going to be going on for quite some time now. Really, the entire month of December is going to be all about the transfer portal. We're going to have you covered here. We're still going to talk about basketball. We're still going to talk about getting ready for the bowl game. There's still going to be plenty to talk about throughout Kansas State. I know I haven't really got into the basketball yet as we're just starting off this show this week, but there'll be plenty to talk about, men's and women's side, because they're both cooking. There's been plenty to talk about with the men's and basketball team so far this year, especially this past week. As I'm getting started here, just getting everything glued together. So stick with me as we get ready to start covering a lot more. There's about to be a lot more traffic on this page now that I'm getting a little bit more comfortable, getting settled, and things are starting to fall into place here on the page. So appreciate you guys joining early. We've seen a lot of nice action. Kansas State shows up. We knew this was going to be a really great show. I'm really excited to just join this adventure with you. So thank you once again for making me your first listen, Locked On Kansas State. What we're talking about in our last segment today, really, we want to talk about, why it's so important for these wide receivers to make a good decision. And we've talked about it, right? We've talked about that there's 4 offers on the table already for some transfer portal guys. And these aren't going to be the only 4 offers. The portal is opening on Monday. These are just some of the guys who've already said they intend to enter the transfer portal, because no one can officially enter the transfer portal until Monday unless you're a grad transfer. None of these guys were graduates. Most of them were sophomores heading into their junior seasons. So why should they choose Kansas State? And there's going to be more, but why should these 4, at least one of these 4, why should they choose Kansas State? And I have 5 words for them, and that's this: just look at the offense. That's it. That's it. Avery Williams entering his second full season as the leader of this program. He's already a stud. He's going to continue to keep getting better. He is fully invested in K-State, and he's all in. He's all in. There's a reason behind that, and it's contagious. If your leader of the quarterback, your leader of the squad is all in on this program, despite the 8-4 record, despite starting off 7-1 and falling in the second half, there's a reason behind it. It's contagious, folks. Keep that up. The running back room, although DJ Giddens will probably leave for the NFL, and I hope he does because I think he could be a fantastic running back at the next level. Although I'd love to have him back, don't get me wrong, but I do think he would be great at the next level. Dylan Edwards is going to be one of the most explosive running backs in the country next year if he sticks around. His speed is electric, and he is going to give defenses fits outside of the tackle box. That's going to happen. We already saw in a small amount this last season. Now, if he's the number one guy, we're going to see it even more. What that means is going to force the defenses to bring more defenders in the box, which will ultimately, swinging on back to the wide receivers, why is this important for me? This will ultimately open up play action pass and new wide receivers making big plays. If you're in the transfer portal right now, what is the reason why you want a new school? Now, there's plenty of reasons, I'm sure. And you're going to talk about them, and some of the ones will probably just be the lack of a better term, the political answer. But for the majority of them, they want to make the NFL. They want the best spot for them. Money obviously is going to come into play, but they want to be able to make that the next level, and putting numbers on that stat sheet is going to do just that for them. Having a great quarterback, having a great running back room as your support system is going to help that for sure. How can you not like that if you're a wide receiver trying to look for your new home? And we saw it with Jayce Brown this past season, with those big plays. Now, not enough, I will say, and that might be some of the reasons why we did see some potential, being upset in the locker room. I've heard that was some potential movings on there. And I won't say for sure because I don't know, so don't quote me on that portion. But and maybe some of the reasons the rumors of him entering the portal did actually happen. But if these transfers can see the potential, there may not be a better spot for them than Kansas State. Now, lastly, we're going to keep looking at this offense, those 5 words I mentioned. The tight end room is outstanding. And I'm not even talking about the addition of Lincoln Cure that happened this past week. If you might think that this is a negative sign, because some people might say that, well, if you're trying to get a wide receiver, why would you want to have a great tight end room? That's going to take away traffic from that wide receiver. Just because K-State has more tight end touchdowns than anyone in the nation, doesn't that mean a wide receiver doesn't want to be here? Because they're not getting that touchdowns. If you look at the big picture here, if there is a weapon on the field at every eligible position, where are the double teams? Where are the opportunities for those defenders or the defense to bring an extra defender to blitz the quarterback? They will likely have to play safer zone-like defenses for the majority of the game. And what does that mean? That means you can expose them easily. What does that mean? Meaning that you can move the ball easily. And for those who are working towards it, make it to the NFL, as the majority of these players are, that means that stat sheet is going to take a huge bump up in 2025 if you're on the Wildcats next season. Again, how can you not love that? Kansas State is going to be one of the best wide receiver rooms in the Big 12 Conference regardless in 2025. I guarantee it. Put that stamp on there. It's going to happen. Whether it's Jayce Brown, whether it's Trey Spivey, or whether it's one of these players or somebody else leading the charge for the Wildcats, I have full faith in this program, taking that next step up and moving forward from 8-4 and getting back into the Big 12 contention. It's going to happen. And we're going to talk about that all more here. There's plenty to be excited about. We're going to continue to cover it here throughout the offseason as we dig deep, and we're going to dive deep into this transfer portal as soon as it opens on Monday. So until then, please subscribe, please like the video, and until next time, this has been Locked On Kansas State.